This Lacey City Council work session to order. For the record, the mayor is absent tonight with an excused absence, and council members Cox and Dunning will be attending remotely online. And I just kind of want to acknowledge real quick our two newest council members, Marin Turner and Ryan Siu, to their first city work session. And with that, I will read the land acknowledgement, and then we'll get into approving our agenda. We, the city of Lacey, are on the ancestral lands of the tribal people of Medicine Creek, the Treaty of Medicine Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and the Squaxin Island Tribe. We acknowledge and remember those tribal people not recognized today who were absorbed or relocated into other tribes for survival. We recognize the ancestors and their descendants who are still here. We recognize and respect the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek as the traditional stewards of these lands since time immemorial, and their role today in taking care of these lands in perpetuity. We recognize and have the responsibility to call the attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as they have today. We recommend that the community members read the Medicine Creek Treaty of 1854. And with that, I would like to entertain an approval of our agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about tonight's agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there any opposed? Seeing none, that motion passes unanimously, and we have an agenda. First item on our agenda is public comment. I don't see that anybody signed up for public comment tonight, and I don't see that we have any people wanting to comment on Zoom. Okay, seeing none. Is there anybody in this chamber that wishes to address this council before we move to our next agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our next agenda item. Next on our agenda item is our Fire District 3 presentation, and tonight we have Chief Schmidt and Deputy Chief Zarofsky presenting. Would you guys like to come up to the table?
Push the button in your mic.
Okay, very good. How about that? Good evening, Council. Thank you for having us tonight. Welcome to those that are new. My name is Jennifer Schmidt. I'm the fire chief at Lacey Fire. I've been in my seat there as the fire chief for about the last year, actually exactly 1 year. Was there 5 years prior to that. We are going to be presenting a division that we've been building out for the last 18 months. We've gotten the great ability to come to the council prior to talk about our community risk reduction division in the past and talk specifically about a program within that. So I'm going to turn the floor over here in just a second, but just for those of you that don't know the history, I just wanted to share that my predecessor, Chief Brooks, that I think many in the room know and can respect some of the great things he did for our community. One of the areas that he really felt was important prior to his retirement was building out divisions and where we could build from within members that had passion areas that they could really dive into outside of just response and some of the day-to-day that we know the fire service to do. Build out a way to help bridge better partnerships with our business communities, ways that we could really build some resilience and work on safety and preparedness. And so about 4 years ago when Chief Zarofsky started here, we found that that was an area that he really found to be not always a priority for communities and fire service. So he really jumped on board with Chief Brooks's support. And then about 18 months ago, we brought on Chief Roberts as our assistant chief of this division. So they are the best advocates for what we're doing behind the scenes, and I wanted them to share with all of you some of the updates. So I will turn it over to Chief Zarofsky.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you for your time this evening. Thanks for allowing us the time to visit with you. Again, my name is Michael Zarofsky. I'm the Deputy Chief of Standards and Resilience, and with me is our team, Assistant Chief Jason Roberts, and we're going to be finishing out this presentation for you and providing you a summary overview of what we presented to you, I think, last year in the June timeframe, of what we had started working on and where we had come. And then we got some great feedback from this body, and we went back to the drawing board and did some more work. And now we're presenting to you where we're headed in January 2026 throughout into the future. So we're going to overview. I got to pay attention to my slide presentation here. We're going to provide you a kind of an overview of the performance deliverables of the Community Risk Reduction Division. We're also going to talk to you a little bit about the structure fire cost analysis that we have done some research on that kind of explains the impact of a fire and how that impacts the community and business owners. We're going to talk to you a little bit about our business inspection fee schedule. I know that says proposed, but we are really engaging that this year, and we're going to provide some overview of how that's going to be engaged, and then we'll be available to answer any questions or concerns that you might have. So with that, I want to share and start with this. You probably remember me saying this before. I believe that everyone who lives, works, and plays in the Lacey community should have a reasonable expectation of safety. And that doesn't suggest that anyone is doing anything nefarious, but I think we take for granted sometimes that we're in a place that is properly inspected and safe. And we want to make sure that this program ensures that by being partners with the business owners in the community, the building owners in the community, to help ensure that that effort is achieved. And so when they come to a business location in the community of Lacey, they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to even question that they're in a place that's going to be safe for them. Community risk reduction is a proactive and preventative mission. It is quite different than the operational mission of responding to 911 calls for service. We want to make sure that we're providing a workforce that's focused on the delivery of effective inspection and investigation efforts for the community. In this last 18 months, Chief Roberts and I have had the opportunity to work together and discover some of the things that we want to shore up. And one of those is investigations, being able to confidently say we're successful in investigating every single fire that we respond to, so we understand the nature of its origins and its cause, and so we can work to preventing that from happening again. And then CRR is also made up of a workforce that's dedicated to support our district response readiness. So everything we do in community risk reduction, and really all of the support elements of our organization, is to support the fire floor and those fire apparatus and those firefighters that are ready to go and respond to that next emergency, whether it be lights and sirens or a service call. And that takes a complement of people that are very trained effectively to do exactly that. And a lot of times we bring that workforce from that operational workforce and retrain them into that preventative and proactive mission. It's a very different mission for us, and we're really pleased that we've selected an inspector this year. Kevin Davenport is new to this team, and he's going to be a phenomenal advocate for the district, the community, and for this initiative of community risk reduction. The last thing I'll share, and then we'll kick it over to Chief Roberts, is of the deliverables. What we want to make sure we have is a program that provides that third-party assessment of inspections and inspection performance, and that really coincides well with the Washington Survey and Ratings Bureau, WSRB, as well as supporting that effort to demonstrate lower fire risk and improved safety, and thereby, we hope, reducing lower insurance rates over time. One of the things that we're going to be focusing on this year is developing a consortium of people that are in the insurance industry and bringing those people together and hosting a seminar to talk about the work that we're doing in community risk reduction, and also get their firsthand take on how these programs will affect their view of insurance and insurance rates in the community. Again, we believe that over time we're going to see a lower insurance protection class rating, which should affect insurance rates for building owners and business owners in the community. And then, as I said before, the investigation performance. We have just finished a ton of work related to readiness for investigations and developing improved systems, providing systems for training more firefighters to be investigators when they're not at work, when they're off duty, and then working with partner agencies in the county in a collaborative inspection program so that when, for whatever reason, we don't have somebody available to do an investigation here right now, a neighboring agency can help us, and we can offer that in kind if they're in a similar situation. So just maximizing the talent that's in the county.
You have questions as you go?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Go ahead.
Just quickly, currently the PC rating in the city is 3, correct?
That is correct.
Is that the same in the rest of the district?
It is.
All of the district of 3 now?
The 3, the county and the city are all 3. And I would say compared to the last evaluation, which was in 2018, I think, we were closer to a 4, So we were still a 3, and now we're closer to a 2. So we're really trending towards that 2 rating, and that will have probably an exponential impact in insurance rates for everybody.
That's my opinion, that's what I do for
Yeah.
in the insurance business.
Then we need to have you at that seminar.
Be happy to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has a direct effect on rates, more so for businesses even than for homes, but it
Right.
does affect the homeowners' insurance rates as well.
2 of the largest markers that will improve our rating when we have another evaluation is we've staffed Station 32, which is out on Yelm Highway. And then the second major one is going to be this program and the ability to say to WSRB or anyone that asks that we are inspecting 100% of our businesses and our buildings that are offering business support in the community. I'll turn it over to Chief Roberts.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Roberts with Lacey Fire District. Thank you for having us here tonight. I've been with the Fire District for 27 years. I have been on a front end rig for 25 of those years, and I can tell you for the majority of my career, I have been focused on this passion of mine to make our community safer and do what I can to try to prevent emergencies from happening in the first place. So I'm very honored to be given this opportunity to be in this position, and I'm excited to be at this point in my career where I can be in front of you and addressing all the work that we've been working on over the past 18 months to get to where we are today. What I wanted to do is take a look at the past 5 years and evaluate fires that occurred within our jurisdiction, so both in the city and the county, that were significant enough to where a business probably was not able to continue to operate. And so the benchmark that I used for that was any fire that had more than $10,000 worth of damage. And I figured no matter what size business you were, if you had a $10,000 amount of damage to your business, it would be impactful enough to at least shut your doors for a short period of time. And when I did that, over the past 5 years, we found that there were 13 fires that rose that magnitude out of about 1,500 fires during that period. And with that, the contents and the structure loss that we determined was $3.8 million worth of damage. And so a lot of times when people look at fires, they say, okay, it's an individual's problem, and that is the impact of a fire. And I'm here today to say that it is not just an individual problem. It's not just an individual business's problem. It's a community problem, and it creates chaos in the community when an event affects a business like this. And so from these fires, what I did is I did an analysis, and this analysis was done based on our fire investigations, and I found that there were trends. And the trends were things like sprinkler systems that or buildings that didn't have sprinkler systems. And if you didn't have a sprinkler system, the damage was much more severe. Looked at things like housekeeping and storage. When there were housekeeping and storage issues, the damage tended to be more severe. We also found that 2 of the properties were vacant. And we also saw things in this analysis that indicated that if we had just come and done a simple inspection, the opportunity to do a face-to-face with that business owner may have prevented some of those fire hazards. And so all those things point to, these were all preventable fires that if a fire inspection had been conducted, we may have been able to prevent these from happening in the first place. And one thing I wanted to point out also was, please remember that the fire department is an all hazards department. So a few years ago, we had that big freeze event, and we had businesses throughout an entire community that had broken pipes and were flooded. And so we're not just looking at the risk of fires, we're looking at all hazards when we go out and we do these inspections. So what I wanted to show was the hidden cost of fire. And these are the hidden costs of fire to a business. And so you're going to have effects of the operational costs, the cleanup costs, administrative and legal costs, the employee-related costs, such as you may lose your employees to other employers when this happens. Then you have to rehire them. The impact to your reputation and your business, and the cost of rebuilding and maybe new compliance requirements when you make those changes. And when you look at that, I think of it as a scatter map. It looks chaotic and busy, and I did that on purpose to say, when this happens to your business, it's very impactful. But what I want you to also understand is the same thing happens to our community. And it has impacts on the city of Lacey. We lose tax revenue. It has impacts on the community as our insurance rates go up, and there's impact to housing if it's a residence, or as people lose their jobs and can no longer pay their rent. There's environmental oversight, and there's impacts to the fire department, obviously both before and after the event with our investigations and the costs and for the wear and tear on our equipment and our personnel. The impacts to law enforcement as they have to control the scene and maybe investigate fires, and our public works and the impacts to our infrastructure. So after the last time our agency came and we met with the city council, we were asked to work on what we had presented to make it more evenly distributed amongst businesses. And so what we've identified is there's 907 businesses that we've identified within the community. And as you look at the breakdown there, there's different size ranges for each of those businesses. And the fee structure is based on the size of your business, because we believe that as your business gets larger, the impact to our time and the complexity of the call gets greater. An example of that is you can see the delineation at 7,500 square feet. And the reason why that delineation is there is once you hit 7,500 square feet, you have to have a sprinkler system and an alarm. And so just by having that, it becomes more complicated for our investigators as they do their fire inspections. We also want to be, wanted to build this in a way that as we're trying to balance safety, we don't want this to be overly burdensome to our businesses. And we want it to be fairly spread across the businesses based on their size. So buildings that are under 3,000 square feet, we're only going to inspect every other year because the risk isn't as great. And on those off years, they will fill out a self-attestation form to say, hey, we've done this walk, we've done a self-survey, and they submit it to us. And if they choose not to do that, then we're happy to come out and provide the inspection form. But we want to try to support those small businesses. The one caveat to that is if you're a restaurant, because you have a hood system, then you're still going to get inspected annually because the risk is greater because you have that suppression system within your occupancy. We understand that having a vacant building can be impactful to the building owner. And so if you have a vacant building, we're only going to charge you half the cost because there isn't as much to inspect. If you don't have people and contents inside, it doesn't take us as long to conduct the inspection, and so we want to support those businesses. And then part of this inspection program is as we do our inspection, we understand that there's going to be problems that are identified that we would like the business to address. And this is about education and being supportive of our community. And so the very first reinspection that we do is complimentary. We come back and we'll take a look at your business and make sure that it's been addressed and address any other additional questions that you might have. And then after that, if we have ongoing issues, then we would charge at a rate of $75 an hour. And then the last part is the purpose of this is to recoup the cost that it has to the fire department. So we're not making money off this. This is just so that we can afford to provide this service and provide a better service with certified fire inspectors. And so what we're going to do is every 3 years, we're going to evaluate the cost based on inflation to make sure that we're still covering our cost in what we're doing. I know the next slide is for questions and discussion, and I will leave this slide up here just in case there's any questions specific to this slide. Thank you.
Can you explain to us the base rate and then the inspection rate? Explain what that is?
Yeah, so the base rate is $65 an hour, and you'll notice that as you go down in complexity, so you look at the square footage factor, each one of those 1 through 8 is, it gets more complex as the buildings get bigger. And each one of those increase in price by $20 on top of the base rate. The inspection rate that you see, the 0.5, that's because those are the under 3,000 square feet. And so we're just going to inspect those every other year. And so, during that 1 year, you're going to get the full bill, but then the off year, you would not receive a bill because you'd get the self-attestation form. And then all the other ones would just be inspected annually.
Looks like Councilmember Dunning.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if you guys can see me, but I think I'm there. I was the one who brought up some issues before with the fee schedule and evaluating that. And I just wanted to say thank you for taking that really serious and getting on it. I mean, we had discussions really maybe even the next day or two after that meeting. And I really just appreciate you guys hearing me and our council on some of those changes to better distribute throughout the businesses in the city in a more equitable way. And I'm really grateful for that. So thank you very much.
We view this as a partnership, and so we value your feedback, and I'm glad you see the changes.
Vacant residential.
We wouldn't inspect residential unless it's an apartment complex.
Okay.
So like an individual rental home, we wouldn't inspect. So typically, most of those apartments are going to have systems like alarms or sprinklers, and so we would continue to inspect them. But if it's vacant, like entirely vacant, then we would they'd be charged half the amount. Most of the time, you're going to have maybe a vacant apartment, but that's why the square footage factor is up there, where it kind of comes out in the wash for one or two residents that are vacant. When you're looking at a complex that has 26 buildings, it's not going to really impact the square footage that much.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I say.
In inspecting apartments, would you be going into units? How would you do that?
No, you focus on the common areas. So, for example, the office space, the clubhouse, and then the common stairwells, and then obviously the sprinkler room and the alarm panel, and check the extinguishers that are required along the exits and so forth. But we wouldn't go into individual living units.
Would you if there was a vacant unit? Go in the unit then, maybe? No?
I don't think we'd need to. To be honest with you, if we went in one, it would just be to become familiar with the building for training.
How's the outreach on this been?
That's a great question. That's something that we're still working on. We would like to hit this from multiple different approaches. We are currently in the last phases of building a postcard to send out to businesses before we do our inspection now. We're obviously going to use social media, our website, and looking for opportunities to engage the public, such as an invitation from the Chamber of Commerce or something along those lines. So if you have any suggestions, we're open to any ideas that you might have, because we really do want to inform our business community, and we don't want them to be blindsided by this.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if we've explicitly said it, but 2026 is going to be our year of education. We're not going to charge fees this year. So I don't know if we
Until
said
fourth
that.
quarter.
Okay,
Fourth
sorry.
quarter.
So, yeah, we're going to spend a lot of time doing outreach in the first few quarters of this year, and so I shouldn't say it by 26, but so it hopefully won't be a surprise to anybody, and we're hoping to do a lot of face-to-face with our members going out and actually introducing themselves. So there'll be several contacts before an actual inspection is done.
How did, I know you just spoke recently to a group, from the Lacey Chamber, from the Government Affairs Committee.
Correct.
How did they, I'm assuming you talked about this?
This and many things, but they, I think at high level, they seem to appreciate, we didn't have the fee schedule or the details, but just kind of high level of what our outreach was going to be, and let them know they would hear more from us. But they seemed pleased at the ideology of a division supporting itself and really being focused on the business community, so, yeah.
I would like to add, he doesn't give himself enough accolade, but the work that Lieutenant Davenport and Chief Roberts did in evaluating, I think it was on the order of 150 different fee structures all over the Washington State region, to analyze what are they doing, what works, what doesn't work. where is it complicated, overly complicated for the building owner or the business owner, and making some adjustments in an effort to meet the question brought by this body back in May, so we could really be educated in like, hey, this is what we've discovered. And that was a large amount of work, and I think they wanted to throw things at me when I asked for that, but they did a fantastic job, and I think we've delivered something that's really simplified and easy to explain to our business and building community, and I think it'll be effective.
Yeah, I wanted to add as well that when Councilmember Dunning thanked us for that, I couldn't help but smile quite a bit because Chief Roberts really took that personal. And so it was, but we appreciated it greatly because we know that anything brought up in this public forum is going to be what we would hear as we start doing our outreach. So to hear it early and give us time to prepare and really consider how it might be received was really important. But it was definitely a high priority, so.
Well, thank you guys for doing all this work. For those of you who this is your first time seeing this, we've met on this for months on end, not just this year, last year, and really just kind of looked at it again. So what you guys are getting to see is the final product of, I guess, how long have we been meeting on this?
About 18 months.
Yeah, so is our Fire District 3 meeting that we have, is bi-monthly?
It's, every other month.
So we've been bi-monthly on this for quite some time, and we've said our piece, they've come back, we've said our piece, they've brought all these pieces together to bring you what you guys are seeing tonight. So I'm excited to see what the outreach to the community is going to yield. I think a lot of business owners are going to be supportive, especially when they realize that this $65, $75, $100, whatever it is, will most likely, hopefully, be offset by lower insurance costs, and that was the real goal in this situation.
Yeah, for the whole, I mean, again, it's the world I live in, but that, the total revenue from this would be offset in multiple times by the difference in insurance cost if you were able to get down to it too. I mean, you know, I know we do commercial insurance, that's what I do, and you mentioned in one of your early slides on trends, vacant buildings, very difficult to insure, that's the reason. They catch fire way more often. Sprinkler systems, we give big discounts for sprinklers in buildings because they, put the fire out and prevent damage. So, I mean, those things being inspected would be very valuable to an insurance company.
And there, go ahead.
I just want to add too, I want to thank Chief Schmidt and her team and this program, but also with their work in working with our Community Economic Development Department, because this is one of the great relationships between Fire District 3 and the City of Lacey is through permitting, inspections, and all these different programs. And so the coordination and working in collaboration that's occurred to see how this can come to the community somewhat seamlessly, but also meet our needs and requirements as, Terry McDaniel's our building official and fire marshal, that there's a program out there that can meet some of those expectations. And then, of course, talk about insurance ratings, this program, staffing, station, 32. And then also with our fire marshal being certified, all goes to help with that insurance rating. So I just want to recognize and thank them for that coordination, teamwork, and the work that Vanessa and Terry and their teams have done to help make this happen.
Thank you so much, you guys, bringing and adding value to the community. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda tonight,
Dunning has a hand.
Councilmember Dunning, go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, as a business owner in Lacey who has actually utilized the fire services, I can't thank you guys enough for how quick you guys respond to calls, how professional your team is, and how much of a value it is to our community. I know with my business, a fire is the number one thing that I am terrified of. This is the only thing that could really damage our business abruptly, and so it is a really great value that you guys do for our community, and I'm really grateful for it.
Thanks, you guys. Okay, next on our agenda is our gambling tax discussion. It looks like we have our city manager presenting and our assistant city manager presenting tonight.
And actually, as Shannon comes up, my part's really quick, is that, this is something that the council's been, a program or initiatives that the council's been working on for probably now 6 months now, through some work sessions on figuring out where some ways that we can look at expanding or enhancing our revenue coming out of last year's retreat in 2025. And as council may recall, you've already taken action on the cable utility tax, also with public records requests, fees for public records requests in the police. And then, of course, had some previous conversations on the gambling tax, which Shannon's come back from that conversation with additional information that the council was looking for. So I'll turn it over to Shannon to kind of go through the presentation and open up for some conversation and see if we can get some direction out of council for next steps.
Very well, thank you, Rick, and good evening, Deputy Mayor and council members. I am here to talk about gambling tax and some follow-up to some of the questions that came up last time we presented on it. Just kind of set the agenda, taking a look at just the plan of the financial action plan of what Rick just outlined of that multi-pronged approach, just really quickly. An overview of the previous revenue enhancement strategies, which Rick also just reviewed, and we'll just go very quickly over them. And then diving right into the meat of the conversation, which is on reviewing and discussing gambling tax with the additional information that we found since our last conversation. And that's going to be specifically looking at social card game rates, the current prohibition on social card games, punch board or pull tab rates, and then taking a look at the alternatives and what are the next steps. Feel free to jump in and ask any questions anytime about any of the information that's presented here tonight. Like Rick mentioned, this is just one part of the three-pronged approach that we're doing here at the city. This is under the revenue enhancement strategies. You can see in attachment 1, there is a document that we are continuing to update with all of the potential revenue strategies that we're bringing forward to the city council. In addition to this, we're also looking at investing in economic development strategies, including implementation of the 5-year economic development strategy, and then reviewing our current expenses. And just want to highlight one of the efforts that we've done. I know we've previously talked about that in the past, but our finance department, working with each and every one of our departments, did a line-by-line analysis of the budget going into 2026, and continuing the work in all 3 of these categories here this year. We've got attachment 1, which is the potential revenue options that I just mentioned. It's informational only. It's not intended to offer specific recommendations. It's really just to be a technical resource for the council to go through this information. And there are certain times where staff can, provide some perspectives on why certain elements could be challenging. As Rick already mentioned, we've had a number of these conversations, and they're listed in each of the staff reports. But we've talked about technology fees, which we'll be coming back to with council at a later date. The city council did adopt a body-worn camera fee, and that was back in September, and we will likely see a potential increase of around $1,500 for the general fund, but also it is a tool for requests that may come in. So certainly something that's very useful for our city and our police department. We also talked about franchise fees, and we'll be doing some further diligence on that and then returning to the council for more discussion. And we're here tonight to talk about gambling tax, and we'll provide an update on the conversations that happened previously and then the additional information we've found. We've reviewed utility taxes, and the city council did adopt a cable utility tax in December, and we estimate that that will increase revenues for the general fund by about $720,000. We still have some other areas identified that we'd like to get some more research on, including a review of our relief programs currently for utilities, but that'll come at a future date. And then B&O taxes, we've talked about this as well, done a general introduction, and we'll doing some more diligence and coming back to the council for further discussion on that. We've also talked about lodging tax, and this culminated here in 2026 with an award in December, and that helps the general fund by approximately $42,000. And then finally, we'll be talking about public safety tax and a grant opportunity. We've called this the public safety tax tools or public safety tools, and that's tentatively scheduled for the end of this month with conversations going on beyond that. So we'll be coming back before the council for more discussions on these topics. As part of the previous conversations on all of these, we've showed these matrix, and it's just really just kind of a brief way to summarize a lot of the information that's provided in the staff report as well as attachment 1, including kind of what the annual estimated revenue is, what kind of volatility is associated with this, and what kind of control the city has, and then also what kind of equity questions there are. So one thing I do want to just highlight with gambling tax that we've talked about before in the past is that it is, the volatility can be very high, just given that it is a discretionary spending. And so you can see in the attachment 1, it does provide kind of a 10-year look at our gambling tax revenues, and you can see that there's some volatility associated with that. So we had our initial conversation on gambling tax back in August, and at that time, the City Council reviewed the statutory framework for gambling taxes. This is really focused on commercial gambling taxes, and specifically, we looked at social card games and punch board or pull tab rates. We also took a look at what those rates currently were, what the state maximum rates were, and then what potential options were available to the city. In addition, took a look at comparable cities statewide and kind of compared where our rates were comparative to theirs, and then had a discussion on potential general fund revenue increases based on all of the above. So this is all summarized in the staff report under Table A. You can see I've highlighted in blue the punch board or pull tabs and social card games because that is what we spent the time focused on. With punch board or pull tabs, you can see our current city rate is 4%. And the statutory maximum rate is 10%. So that means that the city has the opportunity to be able to increase pull tabs up by 6% or any where in there, any increment up to that point. For social card games, and again, all of these are both commercial, you can see that the city rate is currently 7.5%. The state statutory max is 20%, and so the city does have the option to increase its current rate up to 12.5%. One of the discussions we had with social card games was the history of how our rate was established at 7.5%. And so just to kind of provide some background on that, in 2014, the City Council adopted Ordinance 1430, which reduced the City of Lacey's gambling tax from 10%, and it reduced it gradually over a couple of years. You can see that in 2014, there was a reduction in April to 9.17%. And then in January, there was another reduction to 8.33%. And then in January 2016, it came down the final increment to 7.5%. What Table B is showing you here is our current rate highlighted in that blue at 7.5%, and then also just a comparison of our comparable jurisdictions. And what we found is that kind of looking at comparable cities, our social card game rate was lower. The average was 10.5%. But one of the things I did want to highlight about this is that just because a jurisdiction has an established rate, that doesn't mean that there is actually a social card game tax located in that jurisdiction. So one of the things in conversations with our current social card game proprietor is that came up as one of the points of not all of these actually have current businesses that operate there. What you can see with Table D is kind of projected revenues. So at our current 7.5%, our annual estimated revenue is about $500,000, and that for each 0.5%, you can see that increases by around $33,000. So since our last discussion on this, we did have a conversation with the current owner of the city's single social card game establishment and reviewed kind of what the conversation was with the council, what kind of information we were looking for. They did express concerns about a potential increase that could, lead to impacts to their organization, including the possibility of ceasing operations just based off of kind of the current climate, what their current revenue and expenditures were. Based off of this conversation, we did some additional research, just taking a look at what was publicly available from the Washington State Gambling Commission. And what we found, and all of these are in your staff report under Table E and Table F, is that, looking here at the city, revenue did increase post-pandemic in 2022 and 2023, but at the same time, expenditures also increased. And so there is a lower net income than pre-pandemic. So if you look at 2019 numbers, the current and latest information we have for 2022 and 2023 is the net is less. So one of the questions that the council did raise last time we brought this up was, what would it look like for a graduated increase in a social card rate? And so you can see I've provided again over on the left-hand side how it was reduced. In your staff report, there is Table G, which provides a couple of options for how a social card game graduated increase could occur. You can see here, option A, it increases by a 0.5%. For the next 3 years ends at 9%. And with that, it would, over that period of time, increase revenue by $100,000 at 9%. With option B, you can see that it increases by 1% every year, totaling 10.5% by 2028, which we would have an estimated increase in revenue of around $200,000 at $700,000. And then with option C, you can see kind of a big jump in the first year from 7.5 to 9, and then 0.5% from each step there. Ultimately increasing revenue by about $166,000 over the course.
Just to point out for pretty much everyone else on council, I think Andy and I were probably the only two here at the time that this actually happened, and it's before anybody else on council. The reason we lowered the tax was a direct request from the facility. They actually came in, talked to council, and asked us for that reduction because they were struggling a little bit. So just for the council's knowledge.
So would this revenue be based on, would this revenue be based on a certain number of card game rooms, or how did you come up with this?
This one is currently just based off of our revenues that we currently have, not number of rooms, but taking a
I
look
see.
at what we have brought in over the last couple of years. And
I see.
yeah, in attachment 1, there's another table that kind of lists everything from 2013 to present of what revenues were.
Thank you.
It's also important to know, though, that there is only one in Lacey. And the reason there's only one is right now by ordinance, there can only be one. There is no others allowed in the city of Lacey right now, which is, I think, part of what we're going to discuss as well, right?
Absolutely. Great transition, and we can continue to answer questions on social card games. But one thing I also did want to note was one of the things that came up in the last discussion was that we have a prohibition on additional social card games here in the city. And so one thing the council could consider, either in, combination of increasing the rate or as a standalone item, would be to repeal Lacey Municipal Code 506, social card games prohibited. This would allow other social card game businesses to come and set up operations in the city. One thing to note about this is that it would not provide a short-term benefit. However, it could potentially provide a long-term benefit by, having another card house here in the city. But something also to consider is that it could change how and where people go just with current conditions. So you may have a net relatively less increase, a limited increase.
So, have there been businesses that have expressed an interest in setting up social card games here?
Councilmember, not to my knowledge, but I would turn to the city manager to see if maybe he's heard of anything.
Not for some time. Maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, there was some interest of a company that wanted to look for an area for a location down in this area. At that time, it wasn't allowed outside of the one grandfathered use, and they never came back with a proposal to pursue it further. And I haven't heard anything since.
I do have one question, and two questions, but my first one pertains to the previous slide. And okay, so it looks like we're considering doing whatever we do over a 3-year period. Are we limited to a 3-year period, or?
No, the council could provide direction to take a look at a longer runway, a shorter runway. That's up to council discretion. We just provided 3 years as an example.
Okay.
We could jump it right to 20 in one shot if we wanted to. If we wanted to put it out of business.
But if we
yeah.
did like a 5-year, half a point per year, and capping it at 10, we'd be okay there too.
Council could take any direction they wanted to on how to increase that.
Okay. And then my next question is on the slide that you were on. In that Lacey Municipal Code, and it says, one card room. So with the tribe, trying to get through the trust process and potentially having a card room of their own, are they considered sovereign there, and therefore they're not, it wouldn't be something that we would have to modify our ordinance for them because there's, okay.
They would, because it would be the property would be under federal trust. We would not have any regulatory authority over it unless there was something put together into a cooperation agreement.
Okay.
This tax wouldn't apply either, no
Right,
taxing
so
authority
we don't
either.
need to do this for their sake?
No,
Okay.
the short way of saying it, yeah.
So in the staff report, what we've provided are some alternatives that the council could consider. The first alternative being, not to change anything with social card games, not the rates, not the prohibition. There are two additional alternatives, and that would be alternative two, not to change the social card game rate, but to repeal the prohibition on social card games. And then the third alternative would be to increase incrementally the social card game rate at a rate determined by the city council, and also to repeal the social card game prohibition. In addition to that, we've also provided kind of catch-all alternatives of something not contemplated here. So
Anything you want.
happy to answer any council's questions on this particular topic before we move over to punch boards and pull tabs, if there are any additional.
I don't have a question, but I definitely think we should seriously consider removing the prohibition. I mean, I think that's something we've talked about for the last several years. It makes very little sense to me why we have a prohibition and basically creating a situation, a monopoly of one business
Yeah.
that no one else can open a business in the city.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the reasoning.
I'm not sure I was on council when we did that.
That was before my time too.
Yeah, so I'm looking
I was here for the lowering the rate, but I was not here when that prohibition was passed. It's before my time.
And I noticed that we lowered the rate of about 83 basis points per year for a 3-year period, getting them to 7.5.
Yeah.
I am currently in favor of, us getting back to that rate that we were at. And we'll have that discussion, as soon as we get done with this presentation. But both hands. And so let's hear from some of our other council members. I don't know who was first. I wasn't looking. My apologies. Councilmember Cox, you've not had the floor tonight. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I apologize for my voice. I agree. I think we ought to repeal and allow other social card game groups that want to do business in Lacey to come in and do that. I also like the idea of a 5-year plan that would be probably more attractive to other businesses that would want to come in and would allow for the existing business to be able to plan ahead. But I think we ought to definitely be looking at this as a revenue resource that's badly needed and kind of sad that it was on tap before. Thank you.
Councilmember Dunning?
Yeah, I my just thoughts when it comes to this is under the current setup, kind of both policies solely benefit, one business, and I think that's a tough pill to swallow for me. Not exactly, either option, I could probably get on board with, but I would probably lean, with Carolyn, about opening it up to more businesses to see if there is a demand in the first place. Because the last thing I'd want to do is, push out a business just by raising their taxes if there's not that level of support in the first place. So I do agree, there needs to be some sort of change, and I'm definitely open to whatever options we move forward with.
So having thought about this for a long time, especially as we went through last year's budget cycle, it just kind of occurred to me, over this past decade that this has been in place, and we did the drop of 0.83 annually until we got to the 7.5%. I wouldn't want to increase them at that rate or that level or graduate them that fast, because I know too that they need time to absorb, to maybe market, to bolster the business a little bit so that they can absorb any additional revenue, or expense that they might incur because of any action that we might take. So when I was looking at a graduation schedule, I was thinking more of like half a point a year for 5 years. I thought that was really fair. I didn't kind of dip into all the way down to a quarter, because I was looking at the numbers and, you know, over the past 10 years, the loss that we've taken as a city has been like 1.2 million, right? And so having done the math, but, you know, at that time, I didn't see that it was 83 basis points per year. So that calculation is still a little off, but I would guess that it's probably over $1 million. And so I am kind of an option of the alternative where we do kind of a graduation of a 5-year period at half a point a year, and also allow for other card rooms to exist in the city. That's kind of the direction I'm headed. You guys don't have to agree with that, but let's do have that discussion.
I'm just still wondering if, I'm just still wondering if there's a demand. That's why I asked the question, is there any interest? Do we know if there's any interest in people coming to the city to open card rooms?
We wouldn't know because we've
I
shut
mean,
everybody
I know.
out.
I wouldn't want to do something that would make it less attractive for people to come to the city.
Yeah, so far, during all this time, we've allowed one business to just kind of have that stranglehold monopoly on the industry in the city limits.
It's not fair.
It isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know the numbers, but I don't think overall across the state, there's been a growth over the last few years in the number of these card rooms though, right? I mean, they're not,
I don't have an answer for you, Councilmember, but that's something we could follow up with some information. I mean, that is all readily available
Yeah.
data, so happy to.
I don't think a lot of new card rooms have been opening, I don't think. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I don't seem to see them popping up anywhere. I think more, we probably have had across the state more closed than open, I would think, over the last 5 years.
I would love to see that data.
Partially because you have more tribal casinos, which obviously have far greater gaming opportunity for people, right? Because these can only have card games.
Councilmember Cox?
In response to Councilmember Turner's comment, I think this is kind of a situation is if you build it, they will come. So if we lift the ban, we probably would see maybe not a great deal, but some interest.
So in terms of giving staff some direction tonight, would you guys be okay with a 5-year graduation and removing the no other card rooms ordinance, or would some other alternative?
I would personally like to see us just remove the limit on new card rooms and see if there is the demand there. Because if no one wants to come in, that's kind of telling you that, you know, we're more so just gonna potentially push out that one business that we have if we raise those rates. But if there is demand, then I think that's something in the future that we could evaluate, is the way I would look at it.
Yeah, and I've considered, you know, the possibility that if we graduate them back to where we originally had this ordinance placed at, or their original tax structure, that would they, you know, cease operations? And so, you know, having looked at the schedule and the possibility, this is the reason why I landed on the half a point per year. Because that gives you, you know, over 5 years to adjust, to market, to do the things that you need to make sure that the business survives. And so that would be my recommendation, but we can continue discussing.
My kind of where I'm leaning at the moment is pretty much where Nick is. I definitely think we should do away with the prohibition. I'm not in favor necessarily of increasing the tax, but if we are going to do it, I think the longer the better. So I certainly would prefer 5 over 3 to get there. Keeping in mind that the business that owned, the current ownership is not the ownership that owned it when it was at 10% either. It is a
Right.
different organization, right?
That is
Yes,
correct.
it is.
Yeah. You know, so I mean, again, but when you look at the tax rate compared to other cities, and there's only one city on here that has a lower tax rate than us, University Place. Everyone else is higher than the 7.5.
Yeah.
and the average is like 10.5. So I mean, going back to 10, I don't believe would put them out of business. So I don't know that. That would be a business decision, obviously, for them. But I prefer the idea of removing the prohibition and coming back to the tax increase at a later date.
Yeah, and if we were to come back to the tax increase, which is not a bad idea, I know you pulled the Department of Revenue information, but I didn't see that, we had a really, or it was in the exhibit,
Yes, if
Attachment
you
one has the,
attachment one.
look at, I believe what you're referring to is Table E and Table F, which is from the Washington State Gambling Tax Financial Statements. Is that what you're
Yes.
referring to, Deputy Mayor?
It is.
Yeah, I believe there.
I mean, I am in no way wanting to cripple a business that provides, service and, let's be honest, there's not it's the one card room in the city where people go to have a good time, right? I don't want to crush that whatsoever.
And it generates $500,000 in tax
And it
revenue,
generates $500,000.
which is, probably bigger than the vast majority of businesses in the city.
It is.
From Table E, are we able to extrapolate into the future or to make estimations on how their total expenses are growing comparative to their total revenue? So we can kind of see how a 0.5% increase would affect them overall?
Yeah, I think you can definitely take the information that's provided and you could see what the net income, what I'm hearing is kind of taking out what would potentially be an increase in the future and seeing what that difference is. You could certainly work the numbers to get an estimate.
So we could figure out whether or not this slow increase would actually push them out in like 2 years, 3 years, however long it's, but we can crunch those numbers and figure that out.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing from the council is let us proceed with the ordinance portion of this for now.
To clarify the prohibition,
The
the
prohibition,
repealing that
correct.
ordinance and to continue to monitor gambling tax rates moving forward and to bring back some additional information.
Please.
Great.
Yeah, when you do the math on that net income from their revenue in '23, they're less than 4%, running less than 4%
So
net income from, from the total.
With labor
That's
increases.
not exactly, it's not like they're
not
killing
stellar.
it.
not.
It's not like they're crushing it.
So I think we got half the work done tonight.
Do, I have one more question for you all in consideration, and that is on punch board and pull tabs. And so very similarly to our social card games, you can see here on Table C, what we've highlighted is those peer jurisdictions and what the rates are currently for punch boards or pull tabs. You can see the city of Lacey's is 4%. The average across our peer jurisdictions is 5.3%, but you can see a few jurisdictions that are over 5, including Walla Walla at 8%, Pasco at 10%, and Yakima at 10%. Currently, with our 4% rates, we bring in around $40,000 of revenue annually. The council, again, could increase this up to 10%. So you could see, for example, an increase to 8% would double the revenue to $40,000. So in the alternatives as presented, one of the conversations was just to see if the council wanted to pursue increasing the punch board or pull tab rate from its current rate of 4% to 8%, or any number that the council so chooses.
Discussion.
Would this come directly out of the bottom line of the business, or would it be an added-on fee for the customer?
This is from the business.
Councilmember Cox?
I think we should increase it to 8%.
Straight to the jugular.
Well, it's kind of grouped in, I think, with the old concept of sin taxes. I mean, this is not something that people need to do. It's a recreational thing, and we're not talking about a huge amount of money here.
I have a question.
But we are looking at a yawning gap in next year's budget, so yeah.
So where do you get pull tab? I don't know anything about pull tabs.
Same thing, Deputy Mayor. I learned a lot through this process.
from what I hear, they're usually they're a game at bars and taverns where you have a box of pull tabs, and you can buy a certain amount.
Are those the peel it open?
Exactly, peel it open. And if you match up what's on the board, you get that prize, what's on the board.
So this is something that is primarily at our bars and clubs?
Correct.
And you just kind of buy them at the counter or whatever, how that works. And I guess I'm wondering, so if we do increase the tax, that directly affects the business's bottom line, or do they pass that on to the consumer if they, or? Because
It's typically, it's going to, it's just like card games. You're buying your tickets or tabs, and so that we go through the business expense for administering the game.
But would they just increase the price of those tabs? I mean, or is that not how that
They're
works?
pretty well set. They're pretty
Yeah,
well
they're-
regulated. It's a set price.
they have like a,
So each one of the, if you go into a bar, and I've done my research now on this, it has a set number of like what you would pay to buy a number of the pull tabs or
Okay.
a combination, right? And so that is defined by what's on the printout. So this would be something to answer the question, would ultimately is, the business would feel the
But
brunt
aren't
of.
there a limited number of nonprofits that also use these?
The pull tabs and punch boards and social card games are only authorized in establishments that primarily sell either food or beverages or both. And so unless a nonprofit is running a restaurant or some type of venue like that, then they would be subject to be able to operate a pull tab. Maybe like the American Legion Post, I know they sometimes have that type of operation, but it's just for membership, so that may be a caveat. Nonprofits are generally allowed to run raffles, bingo, and in some level of social card games, but there's certain stipulations about what they can, it's not for profit, it's for charity, so there's stipulations how that would manage, so it wouldn't necessarily apply here.
But for the limited number of nonprofits that have the ability to get that license, would the 8% still be presented to them too? Would they still have to pay the 8%
If-
tax like everybody else?
If there was a nonprofit out there that runs a establishment that serves food and beverage on a regular basis, and they got gambling license to run punch tabs and tabs, yes, it would. I don't know very many, if any, are there that meet that criteria. Typically, it's your bars and taverns and those type of establishments. And as Shannon said, those boxes are generally, 50 cents, $1 a tab, and people just buy how many of the tabs they want, and then that's it's like a lottery system.
so I noticed, is it, alternative 1 says increase to 8%, or alternative 2 says increase to 8%, and alternative 3 says increase to 8%, or do I need readers? or
Both of those do, absolutely,
Okay.
Deputy Mayor. And again, it could be any number, if there was an increase that the council wanted to see up to 10%. We just provided, 2 alternatives, certainly some other option combination. We've already heard some direction here on, repealing, coming back for consideration of repealing the prohibition and then to monitor social card game rates. And so certainly any number could be replaced with 8% here.
Gotcha.
And so that table represents all the various options between social card games, punch boards, and then the prohibition, removing the prohibition of social card games. So that's why it has a different combinations.
All right, Councilmember Dunning?
Yeah, I was just saying, I kind of agree with Carolyn's syntax idea, but logically what I would do is I would just align it with the same social card game rate of 7.5%, and just have that across the board.
Councilmember Hsu?
I was just going to ask, is there any history as to why we landed on 8%, or was that just a number that we just kind of went with earlier?
It's a great question, Councilmember, and I have not read the ordinance that established that, but could certainly take a look into that. It has been at least since 2014 that it's at that rate, if not longer. I know, Councilmember Greenstein, you've been on this
Yeah,
since
I don't
then.
remember ever talking about the pull tab rate, so I have no idea.
Right? And,
You got me on that one.
we did ask staff to do a deep dive
Yeah.
on expenses and revenues, and so here we are. And it looks like we do have the opportunity to increase it to 8%. I do like Councilmember Dunning's idea of if we stop at 7.5%, we're across the board. However, we are looking at increasing the 7.5% back to the 10% that it was originally at. So we wouldn't be across the board after the fact, but during.
We don't know that we're gonna make that move, though.
Right, we are looking at
So,
it,
looking
so
at
we
it,
don't
not
know it. So,
doing it, yeah.
so if we were to increase it, I wouldn't have any problem going to the 7.5%. I personally was thinking that if we did 6% and we monitor this for a year or two to see what kind of effect that we are having on these businesses, and then we could go to 8%. You guys know that I'm not really just into jumping all the way in, but would rather wade in and give people a chance to respond. Which I think they
I'm
would
with you
probably
on
do.
that. I prefer to do it gradually than to do it all at once, too.
I agree.
'Cause
Well, you guys okay
going
with
from
that?
4 to 8, doubling it in one shot seems like a bit of a slap.
Yeah, so if we
I mean,
went
not that it's a lot of money and it's across multiple businesses. This isn't like, the big difference here is the social card game situation is there's one business. We know it. We're affecting one business. This is across, I'm assuming there's multiple places in the city that have these.
That is correct.
Because I'm also guessing that unlike the card room where that is their primary business, this is not the primary business at these places, right?
No.
This is just kind of a sideline thing to go along with, the money's in the alcohol, I would assume, and food.
Right, this is extra.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we went to 6%, and I would like to see, how that affects our bottom line, how it affects their bottom line. Do we get some response back from them? Do we get any pushback? Then that would give them an opportunity to respond if we just kind of graduated into this as well. Council's all right with that?
I'm good.
I can get on board with that.
Okay.
Great. Well, thank you, council. I think we've got some really great direction, and we will take all of this into consideration and be back in front of you all in just a bit. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for taking a dive on this. I'm glad you learned some things. And we'll move on to our next agenda item.
Thank you.
It looks like we are at intergovernmental board and commission assignments. If you guys have seen that email, and we have a handout for you.
Oh, handout.
Yeah.
And if you like, I can have a slide with the handout up on the screen if that helps as well. There it is, magically appears.
Shocking, look at that.
So as the council recalls, every 2 years, it's a review of the council appointments to the intergovernmental boards and commissions. That process is set up where the mayor recommends, and then the council confirms those appointments. We started this process with a request for all the council members to submit the preferred council or boards and commission appointments, kind of in priority order, 1 through 4. The mayor, deputy mayor took that information in and looked at everybody's preferences, and then developed a proposal for council to look at. It's up here tonight and at your tables to look at the primary assignments. One of the things that we just want to point out is it doesn't list alternates yet, because we want to work on the primary assignments, and then once those are reach the council's consensus, then it will go into filling out the alternates as schedules allowed. So I want to stop right there and set it up, and this is the table that will invite any questions. The deputy mayor, of course, can add some depth to the proposals and answer any questions as well.
I have one question. Doesn't LEF require 2 council members?
It does, and it wasn't listed as anybody's preferred, so I
Oh, okay.
would think that through this conversation, there would be somebody that'd be willing to serve on
Because
that.
it wouldn't be an alternate, it'd be 2
It'd be
people.
2 left
Okay,
board members,
that's what I
yes.
thought.
Yeah, and I'm
Nick serves on
currently
it currently
the
with me.
vice chair of that, and would be more than happy to continue with that.
Okay.
So some of our consideration in these assignments was existing work schedules, and in considering your work schedules as you guys have reported them to the city manager, I recommended Councilmember Turner for TRPC with your background. in policy. In addition to your working 410s, I just thought that would be a good fit for you. It's the first Friday of every month. So I thought, you know what, she could probably do that with ease. Some of the other ones are, when you look at them, like, for example, I'm going to be remaining on EDC, and the reason why is because I'm currently president of that organization, and I have another year in my presidency there. Councilmember Greenstein is vice chair.
One and chair of the other, yeah.
And chairing some other ones. So we tried to be as considerate of your schedules as we possibly could. So now is the time where if there's something that maybe you don't think would work for you, now would be the time to speak up. But if you like what you see, also speak up about that.
Or if you have any questions about any of those.
Yeah, and one of the things that that is not on here, and we'll get better at this, but is the date and time that these boards meet. Yeah, and I wanted to make sure that we go over that in this meeting.
I have
So
the information here.
city manager has that information, so we kind of go down the list.
Yeah, so I'm going to start off from top to bottom. Economic Development Council, of course, that's monthly on the fourth Wednesday from 12 to 1:30. Emergency Medical Services is the third Wednesday of the month from 3:30 to 5. Intercity Transit is the first and third Wednesday at 5:30 PM. That's the one that meets twice a month.
EMS is not that time anymore.
It isn't.
It's changed.
Okay, we just had, just before the meeting, we tried to update all those. That's part of the challenge of the list. The
If they
table we
don't tell
sent
you.
out, we don't get notice of updates, especially if they work with, directly to the committee appointments. They don't inform us, and so trying to track updated meeting
I
schedules.
can tell you the change. I can find it.
See, Joint Animal Services meets on the second Monday of the month at 5:30. Lot Clean Water Alliance is the second Wednesday of 5:30. Regional Housing Council is also on the third Thursday at 4:30. Solid Waste Advisory Committee,
Rick, the Regional Housing Council meets on Wednesdays.
yes, the third Wednesday, third Wednesday, well, this is
Third, fourth.
I think it's the third Wednesday.
third Wednesday,
Oh, no, I take that back. It's the fourth Wednesday.
fourth Wednesday of the month.
EMS is now the fourth Thursday at 1 o'clock. Just so you know.
Okay. Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative, actually found out, it changed their name, and it's the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative, and it meets quarterly on the fourth, it meets
Monday.
quarterly on Mondays on January, April, and July, and October. And then, of course, I'm not sure about Law and Justice. We couldn't find updated information,
They
but I
meet
believe.
there's quarterly as well, I
It's, yeah,
believe.
it's,
Chief,
And there's a meeting
Second-
for them tomorrow.
you don't know?
trying to find my list here. I have it that they meet January, April, July, and October, 4:30 to 6, on the dates January 20th and 21st, so they do meet quarterly. And TRPC is the first Friday of the month at 8:30. Transportation Policy Board is I believe it's the first Wednesday of the month at 7:30. And then the left is on Fridays. Nisqually River Council, it meets monthly. I had what day that met on, but I believe it's it's a hybrid meeting on Thursdays between 11:30 and 1. And then, of course, with the ad hoc committees, the Thurston County County Coalition Against Human Trafficking has not met for some time, it's gone dormant, so there was a recommendation to strike that off the list. And then Thurston Thrives, it's also been inactive, but we haven't had any confirmation from, I think the Thurston Chamber's still operating Thurston Thrives, to see if there's any need to continue that. So if we get some more information, we come back to either appoint somebody or remove it from the list as well.
Now, is there an alternate for the Joint Animal Services?
Yes, all the boards and committee assignments would include an alternate for council representation.
Then after we get through the primaries, then we'll start talking about alternates.
Okay, I would be interested in that.
Good?
I'm good with mine.
Are you good with your assignments? Councilmember Turner,
I'm good with mine.
you good? Okay. Councilmember Sue?
Yeah, I'm just looking over them, trying to figure out this sheet.
The matrix.
But everything seems to be lining up fine.
Okay. Looks like Councilmember Cox, do you have a comment?
If I can add one real quick interjection too, is this is not the final decision. This will come back to council at a council meeting for final action. But if there's any, as you look in and find dates and calendars, check your calendars and make sure that you don't have any conflicts, and then you can report back to the mayor and deputy mayor.
Yep. And then we can also have discussion offline on these as well. But go ahead, Councilmember Cox.
Thank you. Well, this is delicate, and I don't mean for there to be any hurt feelings here, but I've served on the Regional Housing Council for 8 years, from the time in January 2018 when Andy appointed me to an ad hoc committee of the 3 northern cities, because the county commission had taken away the city's right to have any input into how state and federal housing funds were to be spent. And of course, those tax dollars come in through our coffers, and we're responsible. So that was the beginning, and it has evolved into a more formal organization, complete with our interlocal agreements. But this is an organization built on fragile relationships. You know, it's dealing with homelessness and the challenges of affordable housing is hard work, and there's no easy answers to that. Nick, you know, I really hate to say this, but I object to your appointment as lead on this, because I think you don't have the temperament for it. I apologize to the county housing staff for your behavior at a council meeting a couple of months ago. It's fine to ask questions, and you should ask questions, but the aggressive and insulting manner in which they were asked was not cool. I was willing to move into the alternate position on Housing Council and let another council member have a turn, because as I say, I've been in that role for 8 years. But I feel it would be a mistake to appoint Nick. There's no reason why he could not attend meetings. They're open to the public. There's also a chance, you know, to speak under public comment. I see that Maren has been recommended for alternate, and my recommendation would be to allow her to become the lead and that I be the alternate, or if she would like to stay as alternate, that I'd be willing to serve another 2 years.
Councilmember Greenstein.
Yeah, I have some comment regarding Councilmember Cox's comments. First of all, anyone on this council is fit and eligible to serve on any of these committees, period. I mean, secondly, I think it's healthy and wise to have someone with a little bit of a different voice, and maybe a different thought, and maybe someone that brings some challenges to that organization. I sat on there as the alternate for a couple of years as well, and frankly, there's a lot of agreement amongst the room, and I don't think it's a bad thing to have a voice that asks some questions. I think Nick is a really good person for that committee.
Okay. Are there any other comments? So again, this is not final, and this will come back. There's still going to be some conversations on these appointments and how they go, and who's going to be alternate and who's going to be primary. So I definitely appreciate your comments. One of the reasons why Councilmember Dunning received this appointment was his passion for the housing, for the homeless, and his advocacy in that area. So that was kind of, you know, what kind of catapulted what you're seeing on this piece of paper today. So there is much more discussion to be had on this. We aren't making any final decisions, I believe, till the end of the month.
It could go up to the next council meeting, but if there's more conversations, we can move it on to the later in the month, yes.
So there are more conversations that we can have on this.
It does, it can't be postponed indefinitely. I mean, we need
No,
to
it
move
can't.
on it because these committees need representation. So, I mean, it's not something
Yeah,
that should be
we do
postponed.
have-
It's something that we should take action
Yeah,
on
there-
as soon as possible.
It is scheduled right now to be on next council meeting's agenda next week.
Well, I think it should remain there. I don't think it should be moved any further out. And we can discuss it at an open council. I mean, there's
Yeah,
no
we
reason we
can.
can't discuss it at the dais, but this should stay on that agenda. This should be decided on sooner rather than later.
And Councilmember Turner, your thoughts on being on the Regional Housing Council?
Can you tell me what the role of the alternate is? Is that somebody
Yes.
that goes to all the
so-
In
meetings?
the traditional sense, the role of the alternate, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's when you can't make your primary assignment, somebody else steps in there for you. So I was the alternate for TRPC for Councilmember Vasquez. If there was one reason or another that she wasn't able to make the meeting, I would go in her stead.
Oh, I see.
And there'd be usually typically the primary, if they can't make it, would brief what's going on, so you have some understanding going into the meeting or some conversation at council as well.
So that way, when reports are due, it's not like we show up to a meeting and there's nobody reporting on that because nobody went.
Okay, but like you said, it's an open meeting, anybody can go, so as an alternate, I could still go.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, for some of the committees, the alternates, in particular RHC, I know
RHCs.
at least when I served on it as an alternate, I went to the meetings even though I was the alternate. You're not the voting member, because if the primary is there, but you can certainly be at
I
any of
see.
the meetings. These are all open public meetings.
There is one meeting that both the primary and the alternate are required to be there. Do we have, or they
I'm
expect both people to be there?
not, I don't think there's a requirement, but I know traditionally on RHC, it's always been, it seemed like the primaries and alternates have always been at that meeting.
Okay.
But I don't know of any other.
The only other one that I know of that has two would be left, but that's
Left.
not an alternate.
Right.
There's two voting members.
There's two voting members, okay.
It's part of the bylaws
Yep.
of that organization.
Councilmember Dunning?
Yeah, I'm trying to think how appropriate, my response is to that, because I do feel like it was inappropriate. I welcome differences of opinions, and I think on this council, just as much, if not more than anyone, I have tried to include everyone's opinion, and respected people's opinions, and fought to hear people's opinions. One of my biggest issues right now that we have, especially when it comes to homelessness and the Regional Housing Council, is differences of opinion aren't and haven't been allowed. It is an area where the moment you say anything that differs from the leadership, you get put in a box. And I think that is wholly inappropriate. And I think having differences of opinions on all of our committees is the most healthy thing that we could possibly do. There's a lot more that I could say to that as far as what I think is inappropriate on who is on different committees and why. But I respect the opinions of our city leadership on who they choose. And I think it shows a sense that we do need to open up different dialogue and communication. We have spent a lot of money on homelessness. It's up over 30% in the last 4 years. But yet we want to do things the same way, and nobody wants to talk about it. I want to have those conversations. I want to engage people in those conversations. I want to bring people to the table in those conversations in a way that I do not feel that we have had. And although I have thick skin, I do think that was inappropriate to single me out on this specifically. And I don't think apologizing when someone has questions, because what I did say was actually written about in the paper, and people in the comments overwhelmingly agreed with my opinion. And I think that shows where we're at,
Well,
that people are silent, so, I'll take that, so.
well, we thank you
Thank you.
both for your comments tonight. And I know that housing is a very sensitive subject, especially in our community and surrounding communities, because our buildable lands are not, expansive and extensive, and finding a building envelope in this county can be difficult. So housing typically comes at a premium in this community, unless somehow we figure out a way to subsidize it with, places like Homes First and these types of nonprofits that help in that work. So I'm grateful that we have a regional housing council, and I'm grateful that we have representation on the regional housing council. Who that representation will be determined next week. And so, we will vote on this next week. It looks like it's on our schedule to do so. If we push it out, it could lead us to have no representation on a couple of boards where we don't have those council members anymore. So Councilmember Vasquez, Councilmember Stedman's, those would be empty seats if we don't take some kind of action. So we do have a week to make sure that we are all in a position that we want to be in, need to be in, and that all our boards are fulfilled. And with that, look forward to a vote next week. There's probably going to be some offline conversation about these things, and that will be healthy as well. We do keep it classy in this city. So with that, we will move on to the next agenda item. But again, we're most likely going to be having some conversation over the next week before we get to our vote.
I just had one last question. There's no one that seems to be assigned to Solid Waste Advisory Committee?
SWAC.
Correct.
Is there a reason, or is that like?
Because nobody indicated that as a
Okay.
primary, and that was one of the questions that we omitted, because we're trying to go through what the assignments were. But if there's any interest in meeting for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, we can.
What time does that meet?
Solid Waste Advisory Committee is first Thursdays from 11 to 12:30.
All right.
So we'll,
And is that consistent, Councilmember Dunning? 'Cause I know you've been, have served on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Is it still first Thursdays of the month?
It's first Thursdays now, and really with me, the scheduling conflict is really, it's at the beginning of the month, which is the busiest time for my business, so it's always kind of been a really difficult one, there.
okay. So we'll consider those positions. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, Nick, you mentioned that the Thurston County Law and Justice Council was meeting tomorrow? Is that
It's Thursday, sorry.
Thursday,
The 15th
okay.
At 4 PM.
4 PM?
I was the alternate for that before, so, however we want to work that out for Thursday is I'm fine with.
The current appointment or alternate?
Yeah, I just was trying to get a list of all the things and how they've changed, so thank
Yeah, we
you.
do. It'd be the current appointee or alternate.
Okay, so we will vote next week. And for now, we will move on to our next agenda item.
Just for clarification, so like, for instance, if that meets Thursday, who goes to it?
Well,
'Cause
This
that
coming?
was-
it'd
yeah,
be
The
the
last
current,
appointee.
the current
The current
appointee or
appointee.
alternate
Okay, which means, because that was Edmund, I think, wasn't it?
for
For-
Law and Justice.
For Law and Justice.
He was the primary, but I think, was it Councilmember Dunning, you're the alternate on Law and Justice?
Yeah, I was the alternate.
So it would still be you then, Nick, for this week.
Yeah. I was assuming, I just didn't know if we were finalizing and wanted to give the opportunity if someone was for sure taking that over.
And we'll finalize with the vote next week.
Yeah, because it is quarterly, so it's something that, it'll be a few months out for someone to be the opportunity to do it again.
But, for instance, though, like Thurston Regional Planning Council, their next meeting is the first Friday of February.
We will vote
So
on
this
that.
would be the last council meeting before that meeting. That's one example. And there's some others that are kind of early in the month, too.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is council travel.
Yes, this is,
Mayor?
Oh, sorry, please.
Sorry. Yeah, I just quickly, what sort of mechanism do we want to do about alternates? Should we talk about that tonight? Or should we send in emails saying what our preferences for alternate positions would be? Or how do we do this so that we have something in place to work with?
Yeah,
next week?
so we are going to, tonight we kind of wanted to solidify where everybody wanted to be for their primary. And then, once we, we will be doing emails for alternates. So if there is something that that you look at and you say, I would love to be the alternate for that, make sure you get that information to the city manager.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now we can go on to council travel, and a quick brief on that. Most of us know the council travel policies, so for our new council members, this should be new to you.
yes, and just lost got too many papers here. But wanted to just kind of touch base on council travel tonight, because according to the city council policies and procedures, every year, based on the travel budget, the city council members are to start identifying those conferences or training opportunities that they would like to participate for the current year. And typically, it's first work session in March is a deadline for submitting that information, so there's still some time. However, there are some activities that are come sooner rather than later with early registrations. So I wanted to get the information out to the council about the travel policy. Typically, the council budget for travel is around $13,500 for transportation and $6,000 for registration, for a combined total of $19,500. Typically, it's split proportionate or evenly amongst all the council members. So that comes out to about $2,800 per council member. Also, though, per council policy, that there are some council members that aren't planning to do any travel. Those funds that they would normally use would just go into the pot and be distributed by the council to a request by an individual council member that may want to do more travel than their allotment allows. So with that, I also sent out some of the key dates of the consistent travel in the past. And that's typically events associated with the Association of Washington Cities, as well as National League of Cities. So for this year, the AWC Action Days, which is a kickoff to the legislative session. It's held over here at St. Martin's University. That'll be next week on January 21st and 22nd. National League Cities Spring Conference is March 14th through 18th. That's always back in Washington, D.C., and is tied to, coordinated with the actions of Congress and some legislative actions. Then you also have the AWC Annual Summer Conference. It's June 23rd through 26th, and it's in Spokane, Washington this year. And then the National League Cities City Summit Conference, which is November 18th through the 21st. And I don't recall where that is.
Tennessee.
It's Tennessee, Nashville. That's correct. So far, Councilmember Turner's indicated interest in AWC Conference in June, as well as the National League of Cities Conference in March, but also want to just put out there if there's any other interest by council members to look at travel as well.
So, not interest in travel, but I do think that we as a council should be looking at the policy this year based on the fact that the city now has a policy for this year because of budget constraints of no out-of-state travel for city employees unless it's
tied to a certification or a licensing that you couldn't normally get in the state, or it's tied to lobbying efforts for grant dollars or economic development recruitment activities.
So, I mean, I just think that as a council, that we should consider thinking about taking a similar policy and not spending money on out-of-state travel for things that aren't necessary, that aren't, required, certainly not required of the job. So I just think it's something that we should be thinking about as a council.
That could be under consideration. Is there anything further on the travel?
No, that was it. Unless there's any interest, the council members know of where they want to look at some of the travel, and of course, continuing the conversation that Councilmember Greenstein just mentioned as well. Is there any other thoughts on that?
Is there any council member who has not gotten to the city manager about where they might want to travel to this year and/or conferences they may want to attend? Seeing none?
I was just going to say, I don't think I've emailed you back, but I mentioned it to you in passing, but I think the AWC in June was
Yep,
one that I was
that's
interested
right.
in. That's in Spokane, so I was trying to keep it in-state as well, so.
Yeah, does anyone else have any thoughts about that, about the fact that, the travel out of state? Is there any other thoughts on that? I mean, I just, if nobody else is, if it doesn't matter to anybody else, that's fine too, but.
Yeah, I'll
Just
speak up
something
as
that-
somebody who goes to National League of Cities pretty much annually. My reason for going there is more about economic development than any other reason. There's a lot of holes that we have in the community in terms of money flowing out into other communities. And part of my goal in going there on an annual basis, along with, bringing back things for Parks and Recs and bringing back things that, the AI stuff, but is really to figure out a way to plug our economic holes, right? I'm like literally sick and tired of seeing money leave the community for various reasons. And it's been one of my goals to make sure that when people have disposable dollars to spend, they spend them here with us.
Yep, we've had that discussion many times.
Yeah, so I keep going back, trying to figure out how can I make sure.
I'm just not sure how that, I mean, again, if the council feels that, they should still do the travel, and that's fine, but I'm just putting my opinion out there. I think would be
It's
more
valuable.
appropriate not to
Yep.
this year.
Well, I think we should be consistent. I just, at this point, I don't know if the conferences are something that I need. There's certainly conferences that I'm interested in, but I do think we should be consistent. So I agree with you there. Is there any policy on council members going to a conference that they sponsor themselves and still represent the city?
You're always free to travel and do pay travel to conferences and things of that nature. It's really when you're using city funds and what that function is, and it's budgeted, and then also meets with the council travel policies. But yeah, if you wanted to pay to go to some event too, because a lot of times that's happened in the past, because, when you start breaking out the $2,500 doesn't go, that's really gets you one
Doesn't go very
conference or half a
Doesn't go very
conference.
far.
And if you travel out of state, airfare, and, then it gets, it pretty much eats that up in one swoop. So a lot of times councilors in the past, in addition to that, pay for their own travel, and that's the same with staff too in some cases.
Do we get options or notifications of, like, say, virtual conferences, things that we can attend from the comfort of our own home that could fulfill some of those roles of the out-of-state travel or the out-of-state conferences?
There
On
are,
demand.
yeah, there are opportunities. I believe National League, I don't know if National League of Cities has a virtual option, but there are also other organizations, like there are training opportunities through WCIA, as well as, I'm sure AWC has some online seminars or classes too as well. And we can start looking at how we can populate some of that information so make sure it gets to the councils to make those choices.
Okay, well, with that, it appears as though we have reached the end of our agenda tonight. Thank you guys for all your comments and all your commentary and healthy discussion. Definitely appreciate that. We are very beginning of the year, and this was a light agenda. We have a whole lot more work to do. So in the future, I don't think you'll be getting out here at 7:30. We'll see how that goes. With that, I will call this meeting adjourned, and as usual, please keep it classy, Lacey, as you have seen here tonight. Thank you.